So how does a country that is absolutely dead set on staying out of a global war end up diving in headfirst? Well, that's the wild story of the United States in World War I. Today, we're going to unpack America's incredible journey from a rock-solid policy of neutrality in 1914 to declaring all-out war less than 3 years later. Let's dig into the moments that dragged America off the sidelines and into the fight.
Take a look at this cartoon from the time. It just perfectly nails the American dilemma. You've got these figures hiding behind a wall called neutrality, trying their best to ignore the absolute firestorm raging across the ocean. It's asking a question that, haunted America for years. Can a wall, no matter how high you build it, really keep you safe when the rest of the world is burning?
You see, right when the war broke out, President Woodrow Wilson made the U.S. position crystal clear. We are neutral. And hey, this wasn't some new idea he just cooked up. This was a core part of American foreign policy, going all the way back to the founders who warned against getting tangled up in European messes. The message couldn't have been simpler. That's Europe's war, not ours.
And listen to Wilson's own words here. They're incredibly powerful. He said the U.S. had to be neutral in fact as well as in name. He wasn't just talking politics. He was framing this as a moral test, during what he called days that are to try men's souls. Think about what he was asking. He's telling a nation of immigrants to just not have an opinion, to not feel anything about a war that was tearing their old homelands apart. That is a tall order.
But, ideals are one thing and reality is another. Right from the get-go, that whole idea of true neutrality got really complicated really fast. And it came down to two things you just can't ignore: money and people.
And this is where things get messy. You have this huge contradiction. On one hand, the official government line is, we're neutral. But on the other hand, American business was booming, pulling the country out of a recession, all thanks to selling supplies and loaning huge amounts of money pretty much only to the Allies. So America's economy was basically tied to an Allied win. It wasn't just about who you liked more, it was about cold, hard cash. Neutrality was already on shaky ground.
And it wasn't just about the money. There was the people problem. America was and is a nation of immigrants. Even Wilson himself admitted it was natural and inevitable for people to pick sides. You had millions of Americans with deep family roots in Germany or in Britain. And yeah, as news about German actions in Belgium started to come out, public opinion began to lean toward the Allies, but the country was still completely and deeply split.
But the thing that really tested America's neutrality didn't happen at home. It happened out on the high seas. You see, the British had this crushing naval blockade on Germany. And to fight back, Germany unleashed a scary new weapon, the submarine, what they called the U-boat.
Now here's the thing about these U-boats. They didn't play by the old rules. They weren't just going after battleships. Nope. Their main targets were any and all merchant ships heading to Britain and France with supplies, even ships from neutral countries like the U.S. All of a sudden, the Atlantic Ocean went from a highway for trade to an active war zone.
For a while, this was sort of a distant threat. But then, on May 7, 1915, it became very, very real. The whole crisis, this abstract danger, boiled down to one single shocking number: 128. 128 American lives. Gone. Just like that.
That event, of course, was the sinking of the RMS Lusitania. It was a British luxury liner, a passenger ship, not a warship, and a German U-boat torpedoed it. The reaction back in the States was explosive. People were furious, calling for war, but President Wilson, he pumped the brakes. He stuck to diplomacy, demanding Germany apologize and stop its attacks.
And get this. The desire to stay out of the European mess was so strong that Wilson actually won his re-election in 1916 with this very slogan: "He kept us out of war." It's pretty amazing, right? Even a full year after the horror of the Lusitania, the heart of the country was still set on peace.
But that peace? Oh, it was hanging by a thread. And just a few months after he won on that slogan, everything changed. Two massive events happened in early 1917 that would cause the final dominoes to fall, making it basically impossible to stay neutral any longer.
And things moved fast. Look at this timeline. In January, Germany, getting desperate, makes this huge, risky bet. They announced they're going back to unrestricted submarine warfare. Basically, they're going to sink any ship they find. They knew it would provoke the U.S., but they were gambling they could win the whole war before America was ready to fight. And then, just 1 month later, bam, the bombshell hits.
That bombshell had a name: the Zimmerman telegram.
British intelligence intercepts this secret message from the German foreign minister to his guy in Mexico. And what it proposed was just stunning. A military alliance with Mexico against the United States. Germany promised that if the U.S. got in the war, they'd help Mexico reclaim Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. I mean, can you even imagine? Suddenly, this war wasn't over there anymore. This was a direct threat, right on America's doorstep.
And that was pretty much it. The return of the U-boats combined with the shocking threat of the Zimmerman telegram was the final push. American public opinion flipped almost overnight. The president, who had just won an election promising peace, now had to get the entire nation ready for war.
So on April 2nd, 1917, Woodrow Wilson stood before Congress and asked for a declaration of war. And his reason? It marked a huge shift. He wasn't just talking about protecting ships or telegrams anymore. He turned it into a moral crusade. His mission, in his famous words, was to make the world safe for democracy.
And just like that, the journey from determined isolation to all-out war was complete, pushed along by economics, by morality, and by direct threats. Which really leaves us with a massive question, one that's just as relevant today as it was back then. In a world as connected as ours, is it even possible for a major power to stay truly neutral when conflict breaks out on a global scale?